Hello, I'm Rocio Baeza with GDPR Stand Up. I came across a great question on a Facebook group that I am a part of, and I want to share my thoughts here. So the question is from Jack, and Jack says, I make a list of travel bloggers' email addresses and outreach to them to be part of an article I'm writing. First question is, are there any GDP concerns here? And question number two would be, is there any difference if I do this manually versus using software tools like Hunter.io to gather their emails and Mailshake to send the emails? All right. So, Jack, so this is my take on your first question. I would say there are GDPR concerns here. The ones that I would point you to would be several. Before I cover those, I just want to make it clear that when it comes to GDPR, your obligation, it really comes down to how you're obtaining these email addresses, what additional information you are collecting about these people, and how you are using that information. So, as I'm answering this question, I am making some assumptions. The first assumption is I'm assuming that you're collecting these email addresses from publicly or commercially available tools. Think LinkedIn, think an online service where you have a person that you're trying to reach and you're trying to gather their email address. I'm also assuming that you're collecting the email address itself, but you're also collecting the person's full name and whatever organization that they work for. Now, for the GDPR implications, so I have a neat little tool that I like to use. I call it the 10 GDPR components. You can see that on my website at gdprstandup.com. And just in cross-referencing your question to that resource, so I think in terms of the implications, you would want to make sure that your internal record keeping for GDPR is up to date. So as part of your information audit, as part of your data inventory, you want to make sure that you're documenting, all right, what kind of data are you holding internally? Where is that data coming from? What's that source? Where are you storing this data? And how are you using this data internally? So you want to make sure that your data inventory records that. I would also point you to take a look at your privacy policy. Now, this is a legal document where you are sharing what your data management practices are. You want to make sure that you're open and transparent with what kind of data you are gathering about people, where you're gathering that data from, and how you are using that. Now, when it comes to individual rights, so if someone that you hold personal information about, if they reach out to you and they want to exercise any other rights afforded under GDPR, things like the right to be forgotten, the right to access, and so forth, you just want to make sure that you have a process in place to receive those requests and to be able to process that and honor that. If you are collecting personal data of individuals, I would also point you to making sure that you have an operationalized information security plan. Now, if you're small, it doesn't mean that you need something that's very fluffy. You can have just something that is very right sized. And you really just want to make sure that you are protecting the data that you hold, that you have policies in place, you have training in place, and you have procedures in place. If you are a one-stop shop, then this should look very simple. If you are a part of an organization and you're doing this on behalf of an organization, then this policy training and the procedures would probably be more involved. When it comes to breach notification, if any of the personal data that you hold is breached, you want to make sure that you are ready to investigate that and to report that. And lastly, you want to make sure that you are demonstrating compliance to GDPR. So you want to make sure that whatever your GDPR program looks like, that you are assessing that you are auditing that on some type of regular basis, and that you have record keeping to show that you know what you need, you know what your GDPR obligations are, and you're doing that. The only way that you're able to demonstrate that is by documenting that. So make sure that you are producing that. And I will just close out by saying that going back to the privacy policy, so given the tools that you are using, Hunter.io and Mailshake, I would just say, just think about the service. What are they providing? How are they? How are you using the service? And how are they? What are they doing with the data that you provide or that you pull? You want to ask: does that seem reasonable? Does that make sense? You also want to ask: is there anything questionable that these service providers may be doing with any data that comes out of how you're using the tool? So and the way that you can do that is just reading their privacy policy, and you doing an internal check to make sure that it's aligned with your business purpose for that information. And you want to make sure that your privacy policy is updated so that you're being, again, open and transparent with what kind of data you are gathering about people, how you are gathering that information, how you're using that, and how you are securing that. If you found this to be helpful and you want to learn more about my work, feel free to check it out at gdprstandup.com. All right, Jake.